Now, I hope you're all in bed. I hope you're all tucked up. I hope you're all nice and warm. Once upon a time, long, long ago, so long ago that no one's quite sure if it really happened or not, far, far away, on a little island called Bear Island off the coast of County Cork. There was a solitary fisherman by the name of Paddy O'Dwyer. Now, the island was a small island, and everybody who lived on that island seemed to have a wife, except Paddy O'Dwyer. And there was no one there left who he could marry, apart from Mad Mary. And, well, no one wanted to marry Mad Mary, and Paddy O'Dwyer certainly wasn't going to be the first to marry her, though he would have been the last. He used to go down and stare at the great Atlantic as it came crashing down and long for a wife. Sometimes when he was out in the sailing boats, he'd put into another island or into town on the mainland, but nobody there wanted to marry Paddy O'Dwyer because he smelt of fish and lived on a little island. One day, as he was sitting, and I've sat there too, and looking out at the great Atlantic as it came in crashing, and there's nothing between Bear Island and North America, maybe 8,000 miles away. He sat there miserable and thought he'd end it then and there. He came back the next morning determined. But the sea was like a mill pond, and out on a rock he saw a beautiful girl, a girl he did not recognize. There was something about her that made him think she wasn't entirely human. Maybe it was the green hair. He snuck up towards her, and then he could see there were some scales on her face. And as he got closer, he saw her little red cap, the sort of cap that the sea people in those parts wear so they can breathe underground. Not breathe underground, so they can breathe underwater. Well, he crept up closer, and then he grabbed the hat. And she turned great, green, mournful, sad eyes at him. And he seized her hand that was ever so slightly scaled. Man, are you going to eat me? I'm not going to eat you, my love. I'm going to marry you. Well, if that's the case, I must just be telling my father, who is the king under the water. Well, if your father's the king, perhaps he can give us a present. Well, we'll be needing a wedding bed. Well, he's got lots of oyster beds. Not that sort of bed. And then she turned to the water and he noticed hundreds of little fishies coming and poking their heads out of the water and looking, and she bent and she whispered, and in a flash they were gone. Then he took her by the hand to Father Thomas, the local priest. And he said, "Will you marry us?" "I can't marry you to that fish," said Father Thomas. "But her father's the king under the water in these parts." "Well, if her father's the king, that's a different matter. Just be remembering that it's the Jameson I like when you see your father-in-law the next time." And so they were married. I'd like to say they lived happily ever after, but this is a fairy tale. What happened was they got married and they started to produce children. Now, Paddy O'Dwyer knew that if she ever got her red cap back, she might be off and away and back to sea, so he hid it in his shed. All the fishermen had a shed, and all the fishermen's wives kept those sheds neat and tidy and immaculate, and it was the pride of the village. But there was one shed that was really messy and tidy, and Paddy O'Dwyer would not let his wife in it. Now, it may be that it is possible for someone somewhere to bring a fish into a village and marry her and everyone to be happy. But the other wives, well, they weren't so nice to her. And they would also keep going on and on about this bloody shed and telling her it was the shame of the village and you need to tidy it. Now, one day, when Paddy O'Dwyer was out to sea and everybody knew he might be gone a couple of days, they marched up, all the other wives, they marched up to her house and said, "Now, look you here, Mrs. O'Dwyer, you'll be coming with us and we'll be tidying your shed." And she thought it was a lonely life. It was a lonely life and nobody was very nice to her. And perhaps, if she were to go and tidy her shed, and to be sure, it wasn't a nice thing to have an untidy shed. So off they went and they tidied that shed. And as they were tidying, up behind a lobster pot, hidden away, she saw something little red pointing out. And she pulled it out. And it was her little peaked cap. And it brought back a memory. And when all was tidy and all was done, she went back into her house and she said to her eldest daughter, "You look after all the children now, Eileen. I'm off to see my father, but I'll be back." And she went down to the sea and she put on that cap and she went off and underwater. Now, when Paddy O'Dwyer came back and he saw his shed had been tidied, he got a sinking feeling in his stomach. And when he went into his house and his daughter said that the mother had gone to see her father, and then he dashed to the shed and he saw the cap was gone. Well, his heart broke. He used to go every day and sit at the beach, sit on the rocks and look out to sea and wait for his true love to come back. And she never came back. And for all I know, he's standing there still, watching the sea and waiting for her.